Hi everybody, Eric Brown, MOBO-Media, MOBO-Media. Hey, I thought I'd do a quick video on, something that's on too for me with a lot of folks, and that's, people that have experienced trauma, different levels of, different types of trauma, and the recovery from that trauma. My background is in mental health, psych, behavioral health, whatever you want to call it. I'm degreed in it. I worked in that field heavily in the Air Force, and I purposely studied it before I even got into the field because I have a love of people. It started for me many years ago. Before even the degrees and everything, I really studied people and tried to, understand the behaviors of people. But one thing that has always been challenging for a lot of folks is those that go through trauma or traumatic situations, whether it be a car wreck, whether it be seeing someone killed, whether it being being in an airplane crash, all these types. I'm just making examples of trauma. There's all types of trauma. I mean, there's trauma just from death from a loved one. People can be traumatized. I've seen it. I've seen it. I've worked with folks that, I try to do my part to help them recover from the trauma. I've seen people lose their minds over trauma. I'm dead serious. I've seen people lose their minds over trauma. I, I, I won't mention who the name, and at some point, it'll come up. But I never forget a good friend of mine had a sister, and uh, they had a brother, older brother. Long story short, he was killed. Before he was killed, the sister was normal. I mean, she was just a normal lady. After the brother was killed, man, it just about sunk her. Next thing you know, she was walking around talking to herself, man. It just people, deal with trauma and grief in different ways, but one thing I always tell people with not only with my training but with my experience is that don't the worst thing you could do is try to deny the trauma. Try to make it seem like it didn't happen, try to push it away. Because when you do that, you're not allowing yourself to process the trauma. You know, I'm not saying embrace the trauma. What I'm saying is that you have to recognize that the trauma is real, that something did happen to you. And that starts the healing process. It's no different than, and I don't mean to make this comparison. Let's say a drug addict or an alcoholic, the first step to recovery is to admitting that you have a problem. Okay. And it's no different with trauma. You got to admit that you've got a problem. Something impacted you that wasn't normal. It wasn't your fault. It's not your fault. You're reacting. Um, there's a phrase I used to use all the time that says that trauma and anything associated with it is really the body's normal reaction to an abnormal situation. Let me say that again. Trauma and things like that are the body's normal reaction to abnormal situations. And I can use examples, some of my own trauma, things I've gone through in the military, being in combat situations, being in, situations where, by the grace of God, I'm still here because I often question sometimes why the hell I'm not dead. But God had his hand on me. I know he did. And I got a praying family. But it doesn't mean that I didn't go through some traumatic events. I did go through some traumatic events, and which I'll eventually speak to. But one thing I have to come to realize is that, I have to, man, I have to practice what I preach. I used to have patients sitting in front of me and we talk about things. And what I failed to realize is that I was also human at times. And so when that hit me, when I realized, wait a minute, hold on, wait a minute, I'm sitting there trying to tell this person about trauma. And I've never even began to accept my own trauma or trauma or start to heal. So the first thing is recognizing that the trauma is real. It's real, and that you that's the first step toward healing. And obviously, good support systems, and if you need to go to counseling, and that's a good step. But there's a lot of trauma all over the place. I mean, even 2020, with COVID, and they call it wokeness. What do you want to call it? They put all this negative connotation to it because black people all of a sudden realized they were being bamboozled. Everything from Aunt Jemima syrup being sold in the stores, and people 2020 like, wait a minute, hold on, this lady is a slave. You know what I'm saying? Uncle Ben's rice, all this type of stuff, man. And because we woke up, they use woke as a negative connotation. It was a negative. We as a people have been traumatized. We have been traumatized, and the crazy thing, it seems like there's elements out there that want to keep us traumatized, and that's why you have all these things out there that make no sense. But I'm gonna tell you, in 2020, even I woke up, and when I woke up, I was like, what the hell? What the hell? Because it was right in my face, a lot of things um, that were contributing to the trauma of being in the skin. And again, it's not a racial issue; it's truth. It's truth. Black folks in this country have been through hell. Black folks around the world have been through hell. A lot of folks think that racism only exists in America. I'm here to tell you, you need to get outside of America. You need to get outside. It's a global thing. It's a global thing. Even in Australia, we're heading back to Australia now, and they have what's considered the native Australians, the original Australians, the Aborigines, and these are dark-skinned folks, man. In the Philippines, they have Eta, they have Negrito. Colombia, the original Colombians, dark-skinned people, but they're the ones that have been most oppressed. And this is something that I'm glad 2020 allowed us the opportunity to begin to address it, because um, it's generational. That trauma can be passed on to generations, man. So to recognize and put a stop to it, I think you're actually doing your part in making sure our children, our future, uh, don't have to be so impacted by the trauma as we were. So with that, I'm not going to keep beating a dead horse with this, but my whole point in mentioning all this is that if you've gone through a traumatic event, seek assistance, seek support, talk to somebody. Don't hold it in, because the worst thing that can happen is if you go through a traumatic event and you don't try to get it out of your system, and you go through another traumatic event, then another traumatic event, then you got what's known as polytrauma. It's trauma on top of trauma on top of trauma, and it can really wreak havoc on the well-being of any person. So I encourage everybody to seek help if needed. Doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're strong, because if you're seeking help because you know something's not right with you, that means you got control. That's not a weakness. It's not a weakness. That's a strength. It's no different than you having a cold and you going to the store to get some Theraflu. So if something's not jiving in your head and your well-being and health, get some counseling, man. If you could afford it, don't get me wrong, but there are other folks out there. There are other entities out there that actually either provide low cost counseling, or counseling for free within some communities. And this is one thing I hope to in the future at some point promote more, is you know putting resources in communities where trauma is taking place. Um, Trauma also took place in our community from the crack genocide. I don't say people use this thing crack epidemic. It was no crack epidemic. It was a crack genocide. It was intentional. It was intentional. And so a lot of trauma from that. A lot of families torn apart, generations disrupted. So that trauma is real. It's real. And so with that, I'll let y'all go, and just know that it's okay to respond to something that's not normal in an abnormal way. It's okay. It's okay, because some things are not meant for the human body to go through, or for the human body to see it. So with that, I'll let y'all go. This is Eric Brown again, speaking to trauma. And my hope is that for those afflicted by trauma, who've been through trauma, seek the help and support needed. Y'all take care. This is Eric Brown once again, MOBO-Media. MOBO-Media.